Hello, and welcome to Anna and Sigmund Present, where we examine the lives and crimes of notorious killers from around the world. Some you may have heard of, others will be new to you. Either way, we'll be delving into dark and disturbing worlds not for the faint of heart. Gloucestershire County is in the West Country of England, and is quite typical of English counties in many ways. It is a tourist destination with many castles and other historic sites. The population is predominantly middle class, and it also has a thriving agriculture industry. It hardly seems to be a place where a married couple would become serial killers from the 1970s through to the 90s. However, it seems no one told Fred and Rosemary West. They didn't get the memo. Over the course of 20 plus years, the couple murdered at least 13 women, with the speculation being that the number could be much higher. This is the story of Fred and Rose West. Frederick Walter Stephen West was born the 29th of September 1941 in Muchmarcy, Herefordshire, England, to poor farmers. His father was domineering and a disciplinarian, whilst his mother was doting and protective of her children. Fred never excelled at school. In fact, he remained barely literate his entire life. He did, however, develop an aptitude for woodworking and artwork. Fred claimed his mother intimately introduced him to sex during his adolescent years, and incest was normalized in him due to his father's incestual relationship with his sisters. When Fred turned 17, he purchased a motorcycle, and shortly thereafter was involved in a terrible accident in which he was in a coma for a week due to a concussion. 2 years later, he fell 2 stories as a result of a fight and suffered another head injury. All in all, Fred's early life was a breeding ground for the horrendous man he would become. Rosemary Pauline West, née Letts, was born the 29th of November 1953 in Northam, Devon, England. The 5th of 7 children, the household was poor and struggled to make ends meet. Her mother suffered from depression and was subjected to electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT, during her pregnancy with Rose. In fact, her mother received an ECT treatment just days before Rose was born. Did this have an adverse effect on Rose's development? Many people believe it did. Rose's father suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, and as such was prone to extreme violent behavior at home. He also sexually abused Rose and her older sister. Upon the onset of puberty, Rose became fascinated with her body and her sexuality, and she would often go naked around the house in the presence of her entire family, including her younger brothers Graham and Gordon. Rose also took to molesting her younger brothers at night when she was a teenager. Once again, we find a poor soul raised in an unbelievably horrible environment. 27-year-old Fred met Rose when she was 16, and the two quickly became involved, much to the consternation of Rose's father. Notwithstanding this objection, the two became a couple, and Rose moved in with Fred and his daughter and stepdaughter from a previous marriage. It seems the two became a match made in heaven, or hell as it turned out. In early 1973, a young woman named Caroline Roberts reported to the police that she had escaped their home after having been sexually assaulted by the couple. Fred and Rose were convicted of indecent assault, but were only fined. How many lives could have been saved if their sentence had been harsher? We'll never know. Rose worked at times as a prostitute and would often bring her clients home with her so that Fred could watch their interactions. Even more disturbingly, one of Rose's regular customers was her father, a fact that didn't bother the couple at all. It seems that Rose's father also sexually assaulted Fred's daughter, Anne-Marie. All in all, Rose gave birth to 8 children, only 5 of which were fathered by Fred. In the 1970s, Fred and Rose killed at least 8 women over a 6-year period. Some worked for the family as nannies, others were lodgers, some were housekeepers, still others were strangers. These are some of the deaths we know about. Linda Goff had done some work as a seamstress for them. She was killed in April 1973. Caroline Cooper went missing in November 1973 whilst walking home from the cinema. Lucy Catherine Partington was abducted by the West at a bus stop in December 1973. They held her captive for over a week, torturing her and sexually assaulting her before killing the woman. These and 7 other unidentified bodies were found on their property. In 1987, Fred started to abuse their daughter Heather, but she fought back. This did not go well for her, as she was forced to comply. In June 1987, things went too far, and Fred inadvertently strangled Heather to death. The Wests then dismembered her body and buried her remains in their garden. In May 1992, Fred filmed himself sexually assaulting another of his daughters 3 times. She related the incidents to some of her school friends. One of her friends told her mother, who immediately told the police. 2 days later, the police investigated and arrested the Wests for sexual assault. On top of this, Rose was charged with child cruelty. During the trial, 2 witnesses refused to testify and the Wests were acquitted. The authorities began to investigate Heather's disappearance. The other children reported to investigators that Fred would tell them things like, "If you don't behave, you'll end up under the patio like Heather." The police obtained a search warrant and searched the home. They began excavating the property on the 24th of February 1994. Human remains were found, and Fred was arrested the next day. Fred initially confessed to Heather's murder, then retracted his confession, then confessed again, claiming Rose had not been involved. As the excavation continued, more bodies were found buried on the property, and Fred finally confessed to killing another 9 women as well as his daughter Heather. In the end, Fred was charged with 11 murders, and Rose was charged with 10. Fred was never sentenced as he hanged himself in his cell in January 1995. Rose did not confess, but nevertheless was found guilty at her trial in October 1995 on all 10 counts, and was sentenced to life imprisonment. It was recommended that she never be released. The West's home has been demolished and replaced with a pathway. It seems it had become something of a morbid tourist destination. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this to be both entertaining and informative. If you have any suggestions for topics, please let us know in the comments down below. We'll do our best to accommodate your wishes. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification button. It's just a few clicks for you, but it means a lot for us. You can also help the channel by becoming a patron. Click the link in the description if this is a way you can support us. Any help you give our channel